everyone. Welcome to this session. I'm Soumya Kapoor. I'm the CEO, co-founder of this company called TheLoops. And what we're actually essentially doing is building an automated data platform for support out in the market. Before we get down to talk a little bit about TheLoops, why don't we kind of share here about me? And I also have my co-founder join me as well, Ravi Bulusu here. So wanted to share Sophia, and also we have Sophia, who is also coming from San Jose State, who's also going to give you a post action on how to reach out to us. Reason for doing this webinar was pretty much to share about who we are as founders, joining a startup company, starting a startup during the downtime. And also the opportunities that we have available for TheLoops for students that are graduating out of San Jose State if they're interested in joining a startup, right? We're going to get into a little bit of a talking session here on why you should be joining a startup than going to a corporate world. But before we do that, Sophia, you can click next over here. A little bit about myself. Is that moving next?
No, it's like a little bit delayed.
You probably have to stop sharing and share again.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
Sorry about that. Every webinar that I've attended, every session has some kind of a glitch or not in today's Zoom world, right? So why don't you just stop sharing?
Okay.
Right, let me share my screen. I've got it.
Okay.
Awesome. Can you guys see it? Looks like Google Meet does not like Zoom. And we know why because of that. So anyways, a little bit about myself, folks. I am the CEO, co-founder of TheLoops. Before joining TheLoops, my journey started at San Jose State, where I did get my bachelor's in computer science from San Jose State and got my master's in software engineering from there. I was then at SAP, joined SAP as an intern, was there for roughly about 11 years, went from SAP to become, from being an intern, became one of the youngest global VPs managing a team of close to 500 people under me at SAP for a $2 billion business that I was running. Left SAP to join ServiceNow and was brought in to take the business over there. At that point, ServiceNow was roughly in 2016 was roughly about making $75 a share. I was brought in to take that company, ITSM solution from 900 million to 5 million in 900 million to 5 billion in revenue. And right now the stock is 650. I left ServiceNow to join another startup, Icera. This is where I've met my co-founder, Ravi, where we were disrupting ITSM. If you folks don't know what ITSM stands for, it's IT Service Management Solution. It's actually a necessity for every company out there to manage their IT infrastructure and solutions and assets and tasks, and became actually very, very prevalent during the COVID times, right? Left, did Icera to kind of say that conversational AIs are changing the world. Left Icera in 2019 to start my own company along with Ravi in 2020 to say that, the problem is much, much bigger on the customer service and support side. And this is where we need to make the disruptions happening. We literally started raising funds in March of 2020, the first week, and the world shut down on us, right? There was, the VCs went quiet for almost 1.5 months. At that point, we were like, okay, should we move the ball forward? Should we not move the ball forward? Should we go back to the corporate world? But then, we spoke to the customers and we figured out nobody said no to the idea. And that kind of gave us the groundings and the fun, area to kind of build the solution. In June of 2020, we went back to raise and we got funded in September of 2020. And that's when the company officially started. I've raised close to 9 million. We have raised close to 9 million in the seed fund, which is actually one of the biggest funds ever raised by startups in the last 10 years. We got oversubscribed. And ever since then, the journey has been on. Most of the people in my management team come from the enterprise space. Our combined experience in there would be over 100 years. So we've got some phenomenal leaders leading the company. But, always enjoyed creating new products. Even though I was at SAP and ServiceNow, one of the fundamental things that I really enjoyed was building new products and launching it out into the market. In big companies, you always have brands that kind of support you to get out there. As startups, you have to do everything ground up. So I had a very good trajectory in terms of, starting from corporate and then figuring out my true calling is in being in startup. Whereas my co-founder here, Ravi, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Ravi Bulusu. I'm the CTO co-founder of TheLoops. The CTO co-founder of TheLoops, and graduated a long time back from NIT Bhopal in India. And ever since, I've been working in software for more than 20 years now. I've done about 5 startups, mostly been in the technical role, CTO, chief architect, or in some kind of a role like that. Over a period of time, once you start working on startups, you realize that you keep accumulating patents and have a lot of patents on that side. But yeah, I mean, startups are really interesting because you can take a conceptual idea from an idea to code and to production delivered to the customer with the least amount of friction, right? And that's why I like startups. I've not stayed in a big company for more than a year. All of my startups got acquired and I left pretty much all the big companies within a year. So I would suggest if you're starting a career, you start with a startup. And that's my sincere advice, not just to you, but anybody I interview, any new comer from the college, I tell them that you should always start with a startup.
Ravi and I rarely agree on any idea or any concept at the first go, but this is one thing that I totally agree and side with him, even though I started my journey in a very big company. Even though I was part of the startup side, but fundamentally as young graduates, as you're going through, I think startup is the best place to start, especially when there is a downtime going on, right? The equity, the investments, the learning that you can gain of being in a startup is fundamentally massive. I kind of hit myself as to why I didn't do this, 17 years ago when I started my journey. But, coming back, like I said, you have a calling. This is fundamentally what it is. I mean, I was designed to be in startups. It is chaotic. There's no structure most of the time, but it is the most satisfying and gratifying experience that you can have in terms of where you are, right? And the learnings that you can have. Big companies actually pick people up from startups like sweet cakes. Ravi will not highlight how many times he gets offers from AWS, from Amazon, from Google, from Microsoft, poaching him to join him on an ongoing basis. The other way around is not there so much, but you really set yourself up in understanding as to what you want to do as you start to start, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So with that, a little bit about Loops. Let's kind of get down into there. We're open to question answers. I want to keep this much more of an engaging. I don't know. Do we have question and answers?
Towards the end.
Towards the end. Would love to get your feedback. Any questions that you have, we are here. A little bit about the company. We're very well backed. I said, we got 9 million in funding. We have investors from Dell Capital, Tidal, which is an Atlassian arm, Westwave. We also have angel investors. Alex Suleiman, who is a CTO co-founder at PagerDuty, Segment, and Packet Teams that believe in the vision that we have, right? So now kind of fundamentally gets down to what is Loops and why do you need Loops, right? So Loops is this automated data platform that actually transforms your customer's experience, bringing support and engineering on the same page. In big companies, what really is happening, or traditionally in any company, right, support pretty much is becoming twice the size of engineering over a period of time. And what you need support, especially in the SaaS world today, as applications are getting built out there, where teams are getting inundated with endless applications, that there's no centralization of context to what's going on. So what Loops does is correlates and contextualizes data from all these various islands, and then provides AI on top of that, along with workflows, to kind of help you build your operational engine, right? So that's what Loops is. This really helps leaders from support, customer success organizations, as well as, engineering leaders to understand what was the impact of a customer engaging with them, what was going on with the ARR, where is the prioritization needs to happen, right? So as of today, in any given environment, we did a polling and we figured out that companies are using more than 10 plus tools within their environment, which is all these disparate sources across all these different departments, and the centralization needs to happen, right? Now, Loops is fundamentally built on 3 principles. This is where Ravi's, platform and expertise kind of comes in on how do we stitch the data from all these various sources and kind of build contextualized data in real time is the key. It actually doesn't happen in real time today. It's all in the batch mode. Understand what the user was doing in product, and then drive the sentiment off of interactions over there. We fundamentally believe in order to have preventative support, support needs to be part of engineering. So if you guys have worked in engineering organizations, understand it over there, this is where it pretty much comes from. So the journey is support organizations were pretty much seen as a cost center, right? That's why the ticketing solutions like Zendesk, Salesforce, ServiceNow kind of really help. And by adding AI with the stitched data on top of this, you can take them to collective insights, which is you make them a little bit proactive, right? Attaching AI on that makes it much more predictive in nature. Now you can predict escalations, you can gain visibility within your organization, and that is pretty much what Loops is doing for these organizations with agents that are more than 20 agents within an organization. We have a lot of customers that are, looking at us, that are using us, and our startup is kind of growing on. If you ever want to join a startup at a seed or a series A. The equity that you get at that point is phenomenal, and it goes upstream. There's a lot of content, news around what we are doing in our website. That gives you the momentum that we have. Sophia has been very kind enough to even add the QR code. So if you're on the screen, you can go ahead and scan the QR code. Or otherwise, the website is theloops.io that you can go to learn about the solution, to see what it is, what it does, and kind of answer questions on that side of the house. What are we looking for? We're looking for a lot of data scientists. Ravi, you want to add on that?
Absolutely, right? So we have a big AI platform. It's not just about aggregating data, but what you can do with the data, right? And that's the most interesting challenge, not just for any computer science, graduate at this point of time, right? There's different aspects to it, right? There is traditional machine learning, which is more about anomaly detection, which is about trends and things like that. There's also new age machine learning, which is more deep learning, where you're doing more NLP and sentiment extraction and things like that. So we work on a spectrum of these models, right? And as an application that is sitting on top of a system of record, right?
Right. So there are lots of ways to change.
Same question. Sorry, was there a question?
I think we might have had a student whose mic was unmuted. You can carry on, I think.
All right. As I was saying, right, I mean, because we're a system that sits on top of a system of record, we have a lot of access to a lot of different data, right? And data is money right now. I mean, if you look at Facebook stock and things like that, the reason they're growing is because the amount of data that they've collected, which is another kind of a treasure other than Bitcoins and the usual US dollars that you have. And that's one of the reasons that those companies are so rich and so valuable. The same thing, right? If you have data, you can derive a lot of analytics, insights around it, and make a lot of predictions, right? And where your business is moving, what is the amount of data, what's the amount of tickets that you're getting, right? You can do all sorts of trend analysis and things like that.
So Ravi is working on that. As of today in this startup, we've already filed for 8 patents. That's in addition for the 25 that we already been granted. We're working on various things. We actually have one customer that is actually giving us 250 million events per day that we are using to analyze and figure out how do we do anomaly detection on that predictions and kind of really give much more understand even before a contact happens to the support center. So that's the kind of volume that we're talking about in terms of interactions with the customers and so on and so forth. I think this is something we've already spoken about, right, Sophia? Why join a startup? Ravi, you probably want to highlight these things, right? Why you always wanted to be in a startup world?
Look, I think the fundamental difference between a big company and small company is, how easy or how frictionless is it to deliver something from conception to production, right? And in a startup, that's the least amount of friction, right? You can join a big company, and by the time you see your code sees the light of any customer interaction, it's going to be a couple of years, right? In a startup, you're talking in days and weeks, right? We do sprints. Big companies do sprints every 6 months, right? We do production deployments, 6 times a day, right? So the amount of agility that you can find in a startup, you will never be able to find in a big company, right? And it's not whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, right? Because the risk of adding new features in a big company is a lot more, right, than a startup, right? And what startups are fundamentally valued upon is the amount of new features that can add at a rapid pace, right? And that's what we are incentivized on. Right, to bring new technology to the market, which means they're adding new features into products, right? So if you really want to see your code running in production, if you want to see how you can wow a customer with your innovation, startup is a place you really want to join, right? And as a leader of a startup, like last 10 years, I want to see people who've taken more responsibility, right? You want to innovate, right? Innovation is not just by the founders, right? A lot of innovation actually happens, at the engineering level, right? Although, I get to take the patents from you guys, but it's innovation happens over there at ground zero, right? And you will feel that that's more satisfying than having a stable job at a company where you can't see your innovation see the light for a couple of years, right? So that's my experience, by the way, and it's been for 20 years. It's been really fruitful. And if you ask me, that's the best decision I made.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to give your Ferrari-like experience? You get to sign each component.
Yes. So there is. So if you look at Lamborghini, right, and one of the things that people keep talking about is that every engine that's built at Lamborghini is signed by somebody who built it, right? Which means that the ownership, it's not just if you sign something, right, and it stays with the customer, right? What you're saying is that I own the product, right? The good and bad goes with me, right? You're putting a name to your feature, and that's something that we fundamentally believe in our company and all the companies that I've been part of, is that responsibility and ownership of the product is the most important criteria when it comes to a startup or any product.
Or anybody that we're choosing to join us.
Exactly, right? And the good and bad goes along with it, right? But it's in your hands to change your destiny, right? It's not in somebody else's hands, right? You do well, you get recognized, you get moved faster. And one thing that I can tell you in a big company and a small company, the difference is that there is no fixed date for appraisals, right? The day you do well is when you get appraised or when you get promoted, right? In a big company, you have cycles. You have to wait 6 months or 1 year, and depending on the size of the company and the size of the HR department, you get promoted every 6 months or a year. That's the fastest I have seen. But in a startup, it can happen 4 times in a year, right? It's up to you, right? So your destiny is in your hands, and you can control it completely.
I wanted to add on to that, as someone who just started, this is actually the first company that I worked at that's a startup. And I found that there's so many benefits. I really enjoy the fact that there's so many opportunities to learn. When you start at a startup or when you work at a startup, just because I've noticed that usually there are fewer employees, and that just means that there's more responsibilities. And in that you learn a lot of new skill sets. So that's that's one thing I really enjoy about working at a startup.
Yeah. I think Ravi's kind of hit why join us, right? I mean, apart from being a startup, we are at the cutting edge. We're early stage startup, so you get to do a lot of interesting things. But we kind of live by four main value propositions from a growth standpoint, right? We lead with curiosity. Every day is a question we ask ourselves: are we doing the right thing by the customers or not? We take pride in ownership, as Ravi's kind of highlighted, from every feature to every product to anything that we do with customer. There's a pride of ownership that comes in. We learn by making. We iterate very fast with our customers. As he said, 6 releases a day, not months, 6 releases a day that gets out. We iterate really fast and we listen here. But as a group, when we make a decision, we move the ball forward. So there is a lot of collective learning. We can kind of do that at this early stage. We're just roughly about 24 employees. But as we start getting bigger, I think the last piece might get a little bit difficult to do, listening to everybody, not only externally to our customers, but internally. But these 4 value propositions is what we come together and we learn. With every victory that's celebrated, with every sleepless night that we have, we are fed well on those sides. We'll keep the ball going. So that's what we are. Sophia, do you want to close this and we can take up any questions?
Yeah, sure. So if you guys are interested in TheLoops, feel free to reach out to me. My email's right there. It's sophia@theloops.ai. Feel free to reach out to me if you need further information. Also, we have a QR code there too. If you are interested in looking at some of our current open positions, you can go ahead and scan that. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to drop your question in the chat and we'll answer whatever we can. And then in the future, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out via email.
That was it, I think, for today. Patrick, do you want to open the lines for questions?
Actually, we do have a question. Someone's asking if we're offering intern positions.
At the moment, we're doing full-time positions. They are for business majors. Yes, there might be something on the go-to-market side. We're looking for SDRs that are willing to join. There's some demand gen positions in marketing available as well, customer success positions. So there is more details on our website. Not part-time positions. We're looking for more full-time at this point. Startups, there is no way we can account for part-time. But that information is available on our website. For data scientists, do you need work experience?
We have positions at different levels. So we do hire interns and junior data scientists, right? It's an extensive interview process. We'll give you a problem to solve, right? And based on the problem, you're going to assess, the candidacy, right? But if you do not have experience, you have to solve the problem.
Yeah. So do apply on the website or drop a note to Sophia as well. She's keeping track of all the positions. She'll funnel that in through internally from an application standpoint. Do you offer visa sponsorships? Yes, we do. We are doing visa sponsorships for international students that are either on CPT or OPT for H-1Bs. Yes. Does every position needs to have a computer science background? Depends on what you're applying for. So we have a lot more go-to-market positions as well as engineering positions that are open. So it depends on what you're applying for.
I'll take the last question. For data scientists, do you have to be a math major or development math? Not really. There are multiple areas in data science, right? So we have something called as a data science data engineer, right? Then we have ML engineer, and then we have the data scientist, right? So usually the way it works is you design an algorithm, right? And there are certain people who will actually take the algorithm to production, right? There is a different aspects of data science. It's not just designing the algorithm, but how the algorithm or the data model performs on production, when you have to tweak it. There's a lot of different aspects of data science that is not just about math or just about algorithms. What we really want you to have is really good Python skills and problem solving skills. And you do not have to have, double major in math or something.
Cool, I think those were the questions. We are available if you guys want to drop a line to us, assuming that yeah, for OPTs, we will definitely work through the legal schedule of how things work. But in terms of if you are able to pass and we like you, unlike big companies that take time and they have a schedule, we will hire you right away. I think it just needs to meet our criteria. I do understand, I think the graduation days are May. So for OPTs to kick in, it'll be probably in the first week of June, but we definitely can get out some offer letters and stuff.
There is an ML question. Do you use open source libraries? Yes, we do use open source libraries, but they're the starting point for most of our algorithms, right? And we build on top of them. Most of the time, we end up changing some of the open source libraries to build something very custom to our own solution.
Yep. What are the ideal projects you guys are looking for in candidate?
I didn't get the question.
So I don't know if that's like, there are multiple areas. Like I said, there are multiple positions open. The job descriptions are there on the website, so you can get all the details up there. If there are more questions about those job descriptions, you can always reach out to Sophia. She'll be able to guide you with much more on that side.
Hi, Ravi. You mentioned about a junior data scientist position, but I'm not able to see anything on the website.
My website might not have been updated with all the candidate requirements right now. I would suggest that you guys send the resumes. We have a lot of requirements that have not posted on the website yet.
Okay.
But we have a lot of positions open for data science.
Okay. And do you have any positions as for data engineer?
Yes. So we're hiring in 3 positions: data engineer, ML engineer, and data scientist.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
We have a student that's raising their hand. Paul, if you'd like to, you can unmute your microphone.
Yeah, sure. So I've heard that so a lot of companies already have a lot of data, but currently there's a lack of solution to utilize those data. So I assume TheLoops is providing that solution. So my question is, what would be TheLoops advantages when compared to like other huge tech companies such as Amazon or Google?
So Amazon and Google mostly give you platforms. Like if you're talking about, like there's so many products in Amazon and Google, but if you're talking about the cloud, they give you a place to run your system. They're not specifically meant to be an application. They're meant to be a platform to build applications on top of it, right? So what we're focusing on is the customer support area, right? Where we bring in data from all the customer support sources and give you predictions and ML and analytics and more predictive analytics on top of these solutions, right? So we're more catered towards a specific domain, a specific user and a department, while most of the big companies or whatever companies you're talking about are more on the cloud side of it, that they provide you platforms.
To add to what Ravi was saying, right? More of these companies being in this space, they give you general purpose solutions, not catered to your area, right? And that's a tradition that you'll see in the market that keeps happening, right? What Loops is essentially doing is it's building the capabilities, like Ravi said, and building an application for support on top of that can be leveraged in the journey cycle. This is where new age companies like, Clari or Gong did for sales area, kind of giving them predictions and, forecasting on that side of the house for salespeople, right? We're doing the same thing for support leaders on that side of the house.
I see. Thank you for the explanation. It's very insightful.
I think if that's it with the questions, then we will, Ravi, there is one last one. What knowledge would be expected and asked in that?
For the data science, okay, what sort of math and stat knowledge would be expected? There's not, yeah, I can keep going, but if you're looking at, we're looking at a couple of areas. One is NLP, right, which is more deep learning. So if you're familiar with deep learning, or you've done courses on deep learning, that will really help, right? And the other area of ML that we really work on is anomaly detection, which includes a lot of linear algebra. It also includes a lot of probability, Bayesian networks and things like that. So as long as you understand, basics of these algorithms, which are either probabilistic or linear regression kind of models, you can build on top of it, right? If you don't have those concepts, it's really difficult for you to come and understand what we're doing, at least from a data science perspective. But if you have those concepts and you understand Python really well, right, and you can leverage some of the algorithms that are available open source and build on top of it, that's what we're looking for.
On the business side area, if you don't see positions, just send, either to the careers at TheLoops.io or to Sophia. We will be posting some up in April time window, a lot more on that side. Cool. I think that's all the questions. So like I said, feel free to reach out to us if there are more questions. If not, Sophia is always here to answer. Our website is theloops.io, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Soumya and team. Did I hear correctly that the email that you might recommend that students connect with if they didn't see a particular position was careers@theloops.ai?
Yeah.
Terrific. I'm going to repost in the chat just for people's convenience, both Sophia's email and the careers email, so students can have that reference. I'd recommend if you didn't have a chance to ask your question today, or maybe if at a later time you came up with a question and thought, oh, I should have asked that, please email Sophia or the careers email with those questions, and they can get back to you at a later date. We also have the link in the chat for our survey for the Career Center. If you want to see more events like this one, or if you have recommendations for future events that you'd like to attend, please let us know. We want to make sure that we're running events that students want to see. And if you want to see more of the Loops at future events, let us know, and we'll invite them for more future events. But in the meantime, thank you, Ravi, Soumya, and Sophia for leading this presentation today.
Thank you.
Thank you.